What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. Now, with no pay-per-view in December, will the WWE put Raw on autopilot or prepare to build up for its Day 1 New Year's Day show? Well, join us now as we look at this week's edition of the Red Brand, as well as the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including Triple H's heart condition is very serious, Edge disses AEW on WWE television, Seth Rollins confronts the Bloodline after Raw, John Morrison fires back at Edge, and much more. As always, we won't recap the matches, but just provide you with the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. As always, we start off with the good as number 1, another mega match. Last night's match between Seth Rollins vs Finn Balor was another bout that showcased the WWE's talented roster. As the late great Gorilla Monsoon used to say, this match was a main event in any arena, and while the case can be made that the fans knew Seth would emerge victorious, Balor looked good and by no means got squashed. Even better, there was the story driving this match of Balor looking for revenge on Rollins for laying him out the previous week. With AEW presenting fans with a solid alternative to WWE that focuses on elite matches, it's always wise for the WWE to show it doesn't have to be second to none when it comes to presenting must-see matches. Number 2, that crafty KO. Last night's Raw, where Kevin Owens outsmarted Seth Rollins to earn a spot in the WWE Championship match at Day 1, was a good example of the WWE playing to KO's strengths. Owens' recent heel turn is arguably the best thing to happen to his character since his feud with Shane McMahon in the summer of 2019. Owens has never been a traditional wrestler when it comes to his physique, but his mix of brawling and high spots along with his ability to outsmart opponents makes him a credible opponent when the WWE utilizes both dimensions of his character. Owens subtly played Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville into ruling they'd put him into the Seth vs Biggie match at Day 1 if KO won, then he outsmarted Rollins by goading Seth into attacking him during the match, resulting in a DQ win for Owens. This had to be particularly pleasing for Owens' fans, as it presents Seth Rollins with someone as crafty as he is. Indeed, the WWE actually used a DQ finish in a clever way, something different than the recent wave of meaningless main event DQ finishes from the past few weeks. Even better, this program pits Biggie against 2 formidable opponents. This triple threat should be terrific as Seth and KO wage war on their way to their title match against Biggie. Number 3, Liv Morgan's promo on Becky Lynch. Last night's electric exchange between Liv Morgan and the Raw Women's Champion was another example of how personal this feud has become. We've all heard the tagline, "This time it's personal," whether it's a way to hype a film or sporting event, but the hype is often hollow. Here, the WWE is wisely woven in both Liv and Becky's careers into their dialogue, allowing both women plenty of weapons to destroy each other on the stick. Whether it's Becky's repeated assertions that Morgan is a chronic choke artist, or Liv's caustic comment, "You're the reason why your friend is gone, just like you're the reason why your big fat greedy contract is the reason why my friends are gone," the nuclear heat was palpable. Ironically, while some of the barbs between the two hit close to home, they haven't taken it to ridiculous levels like it did with the Survivor Series program between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. As mentioned last week, the WWE needs to be careful with booking Liv vs Becky, as it can't afford to have Morgan lose, and if she does lose, it has to be in a way that makes her look like she should have won but was robbed. Morgan, who remains a popular star with fans despite bad booking, can't afford a humiliating loss. With Morgan trending on Twitter, the WWE may want to consider putting the title on her, even if it's for a short run to surprise the fans, build her up further, and test the waters for a longer reign. Number 4, Edge and Miz Mike Maul. It looks like The Miz will be Edge's next opponent, and if last night's promo punch-up was any preview of what to expect in the next few weeks, this could become an instant classic. Both superstars have the gift of the gab, and they showed it, with Edge recognizing The Miz's accomplishments in the ring, but questioning how much he cared about wrestling and about how much he wanted to use it to launch a career in Hollywood. He even managed to make a small pop at AEW, saying, "You have people on other shows saying your name just to get a cheap reaction. You live rent-free in a lot of heads." Edge even found time to mention John Morrison's release, albeit without mentioning his name. Despite Miz's up and down push in 2021, this could be a program that not only elevates the WWE's A-lister, but see the return of Maurice and Beth Phoenix as they team up with their husbands in a mixed tag match. And number 5, that old McMahon magic of week 2. He's back and better than ever. Well, no, we're not referring to the former Raw general manager, but the Big Mac daddy himself, Vince McMahon. McMahon's Raw return continues to be entertaining, as this week he took Austin Theory under his wing and attempted to show the superstar who loves selfies how to get ahead in the WWE. Whether it was Vince threatening to fire Theory if he steals from him again, or slapping Austin in the face after warning him to expect the unexpected, Vince's segments were kind of fun. Knowing the WWE, Vince will stay around until he wears out his welcome, but so far it's been good. But that was the good, what about the bad? As number one, check the fans' pulses. What was up with the audience last night? Last night, fans were so quiet that fans watching Raw at home had to wonder whether the WWE was back in the Performance Center. Unlike previous episodes, last night's Raw had lots of fans in attendance to get excited about, but they sat on their hands for much of the program. Just as a hot audience can enhance a show, a dead crowd can dull some of the excitement. Number 2, Hurt Business bankrupt. Last night's latest loss for the Hurt Business has us wondering if Vince McMahon didn't bring Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander back just to stick it to the fans. You can see Vince cackling in Titan Tower as he says, "Those no good fans wanted those two back. I'll bring them back and job them even more than I did before. Nobody knows what the fans want better than me." Can you think of a better explanation for Shelton and Cedric's defeats? Number 3, Tacky and Tawdry repeatedly mentioning released wrestlers. Now we get that the WWE likes to incorporate real life happenings into its storylines, but its repeated use of its rash of releases has crossed the line. Indeed, Fightful Select's Sean Ross Sapp is reporting, "It happened several times during the show, and I had former WWE wrestlers, former WWE producers, and current WWE wrestlers that were all telling me how bad a taste they thought that was." Even if the mention of releases was appropriate, the WWE's writers fell into the same trap as always, reusing the same bit on the same show. Having both segments rely on the WWE's releases was overkill. An argument can be made that they are using these promos to put its own spin on the releases to blaming the wrestlers, i.e. Liv Morgan blaming Becky Lynch's salary for Ruby Riott and Sarah Logan's release rather than the WWE itself. Now, there was nothing downright ugly about last night's show, as Raw not only hyped a big match for next week's Raw, but got things going for its day one pay-per-view. Raw has been improved over the last 3 weeks, and given the talented roster, there's no reason it shouldn't be. But what did you guys think of Raw last night? Let us know in the comments down below. Now let's move on to the news. Now, first story looks at Triple H's dire circumstances. Topping today's news is a report from Dave Meltzer concerning Triple H's recent hospitalization for a cardiac incident. While details remain sketchy, Meltzer commented on Saturday night's main event podcast that the game's condition was very serious. Thankfully, Hunter's wife Stephanie reports that he's now doing great, and according to Ringside News, Helmsley was recently touring the WWE's new headquarters. Next up, John Morrison fires back at Edge. John Hennigan, aka John Morrison, didn't wait long to respond to Edge's comments about him during the Rated R Superstars confrontation with The Miz. In case you missed it, Edge implied that Miz left Morrison high and dry, a remark Johnny Drip Drip refuted with the following tweet. "Hey Edge, high and dry? Johnny Drip Drip is never not wet. By the way, when you jump into the Miz's water, be prepared for a slaughter." It should prove interesting to see if Edge reacts to this on social media and on Raw. Next up, does the WWE pay for drug rehab for all its former superstars? A former WWE superstar Jon Moxley's recent entry into alcohol recovery treatment has fans wondering whether he could have taken advantage of the WWE's policy of offering free treatment for any former wrestler. As noted by Wrestling Inc., the WWE began distributing its rehabilitation assistance offer titled the WWE Former Talent Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Assistance Program to all former contracted talents back in September 2007. Meltzer has reported that the offer is open to any wrestler regardless of whether they're working in another promotion, and that Impact wrestlers have utilized it. However, it's unknown whether any current AEW talent have utilized the program. Next up, Seth Rollins confronts Roman Reigns after Raw. Fans never know what to expect at a WWE house show, as seen when Seth Rollins confronted Roman Reigns after Raw went off the air. According to PW Insider, Rollins was heading back to the dressing room at the same time the Universal Champion was making his way out for a dark match. The two stared each other down, but that was the extent of their exchange. The WWE teased a match between Rollins and Reigns for months when they were both on SmackDown, but with Rollins now on Raw, that showdown may not happen for some time unless Rollins were to win the Royal Rumble. And finally, Nia Jax vows to dish the dirt on WWE release. And last but not least, Alina Fanine, aka former WWE superstar Nia Jax, is gone from the WWE, and according to a recent tweet, she may be done with wrestling completely, but she still has lots to talk about. After a fan inquired about Fanine's future, the former WWE superstar replied on Twitter, "Don't worry, I'll be chatting, spilling gossip with Renee Paquette eventually." It's always fun when a wrestler dishes out the dirt on their run in the WWE, and Jax's story should be interesting, especially if she's asked about the opponent she's injured in the ring. But there you have it folks, our review of Raw as well as the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.